a designer, this workshop is mainly intended for people who are new to designing and branding, but please feel free to join anyways and contribute as much as you can.
Yeah. So this is, I would say this is like a beginner's guide to branding and like kind of holistically looking at your project since you spent so much time making it, and giving you some tools at the end of it to sort of make a logo for yourself, and also just get a vision of your whole project and different graphic elements, etc. So it is mostly a beginner's guide, but so maybe the other designers will probably have already like an idea of how to do this. But yeah. So should I begin, Samir?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, the floor is yours.
Okay, awesome. So I am going to share my screen and I will show you. So everyone has Word, right? Everyone uses Word, right? So, and it's going to be interactive. So it would be cool if you can maybe respond or like lift your hand or something when I ask questions, etc. So it'll be cool. All right.
Maria, do you also want to introduce yourself and where you are?
Yeah, of course. I'm so sorry. So I am a product designer. I'm a graduate in industrial design and product design. And it is, I just graduated from Barcelona, but I studied in India and in Barcelona. And the reason I'm here is because I'm really interested in the second part of this topic of like science communication. So I'm really interested in how to communicate fresh ideas and make like an image. So I think there's a lot, and there's a lot of scope for science communication, I believe. So that's why I'm here. And yeah, I'm just going to. So actually, I'm going to share with you a Word document that you can use. How do I do that? Okay, I think I have to stop sharing for that. Okay, but anyway. So this is a quick logo handbook. Okay, so when people think about logos, what do you imagine? It's basically the foundation of your design. So it's used to identify a company or an organization and its products or services. So if, for example, the logo on the left, it's Amazon, and it's supposed to put a smile on your face when it brings you from A to Z, right? So that's the idea. It's supposed to make you feel like you're a part of something and pique your interest at least. So in your project, maybe it would be to pique someone's interest. We in the field of design, we use the design thinking process, and the difference is that in your projects you probably maybe use the design thinking process, but mostly maybe use different processes, all of which come from your field of interest. But this one, the difference in this one is that it starts with people and it ends with people. Because even the things that we use around us, those are designed directly for us. So we keep that in mind from the beginning. So for example, if we were to use this for Nike, imagine the first person that begun started off with people aren't motivated to work out, and how do we change that? And then you follow this process of inspiration, ideation, implementation. So this is the same process we'll be using for making a logo. So this objective is to look into the basics of visual communication and how, most importantly, you can handle it yourself. Because right now in the field, there's a huge field of designers and artists that are taking on this. But how do you equip yourself in this world? So you learn tools required to create a logo and brand vision. So to be completely honest, it is a large subject. So this is almost like a concise version of it, designed in a way that you can use it whenever you need to. So it's, we have 1 hour, I think. So we're going to use the first half an hour to do 3 exercises, and which you will do with me. And the rest of the half an hour will be for actually creating your logo and making your vision board. So I will, let's see. I'm sharing with you a Word document. So in this Word document, you can use it to type in all the answers to the exercises. And at the end of it, maybe you'll get like a handbook. Okay. I'm sorry, I rarely use Zoom, so I have to kind of figure this out. Everyone. Okay. So you've received the handbook, I think. Cool. So just tell me if you've like opened it and everything is cool, and then we can get started with exercise 1.
Yes, mine is fine. I can open.
Okay, cool.
Yep, got it. All works all right.
And okay, so amongst everyone here, do you have a name? I mean, you have a name, right? You have like a name for your team. But do you have a name for your project, or is that the same name?
Ours, it's the same name. It's the same name as the
Okay.
Time Turner.
Okay. And how are you with your slogans? Do you have like a slogan? Do you have a summary of, because what's going to happen at the end of this is with your logo, I'm going to put you on the spot and maybe ask you to summarize your project in a very short sentence. So maybe you can keep that in mind before. If you already have it, that's great. But this one has to be, imagine you're going to an investor and you have to elevator pitch, but then in 1 sentence. So how would you do that? So maybe you can keep that in mind before we begin. So if you have the document, let's start. I am going to share my screen. Okay, cool. So the first step is to discover the project that you've already created, right? So I would suggest having the Word document and your PDF, if that's the way that you will present tomorrow. If it's a PDF, if it's a video, I want you to take a second to just look at it holistically. So you discover what you've already made, and there are some questions on the right. That is like, what is your mission statement? And who do you want to do this for? Who do you want to pique? Whose interest do you want to pique? And what do people already think about your project? Do people find it cool and interesting? Who are those people? Because I'm a layperson. Like, I'm interested in the science, like the field of science. But if you speak about quarks to me, I'll look at you like with a blank face. So although I'm interested in it, it's very intimidating. So these exercises are almost to humanize these abstract concepts, because it's extremely abstract. And I think all of your concepts are extremely large, and for people to understand it quickly and to care about it, it needs to be kind of simplified and humanized. So I would answer these questions in the Word document. If you already have them, that's awesome. And at the end of it, we will write, what is your name? What is the name of this project that you've created? And what are 6 keywords? So I want you to use descriptive keywords to kind of summarize or describe your project. So you can say fun. It can be simple. You can say fun, bright, If it's antimatter, you can say opposites, anything that you think describes it. So 6 of those. And the second half is to gather inspiration. So let's do the 6 words first, and then when everyone's done with that, we can move on to the gathering inspiration part.
Maria, quick question. Sorry if I'm slow at understanding this. Those 6 words are to answer these 4 questions, or are they independent of these 4 questions?
Yeah, these 4 questions will help you give you keywords to answer these that. So, for example, if I'm doing antimatter, I will pick 6 words only based on the project.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, so to pick those keywords, you should answer these questions. It'll help, maybe.
Thanks.
Awesome. That was quick, actually. It's actually really hard to do this. So is anyone having trouble writing down their names? You could let me know, and I can maybe help you. Okay, cool. Yeah, working with the team is also a good idea. Also, all your presentations yesterday were really, really interesting. Okay, so if you, I think we should, if you have 4 words, that's okay too. So do we have 4 or 6? It's okay. So the point of this is that you can base your logo off of that. And it's good to sort of give you a time constraint, because then it's the first ideas that get going. So do we have, say, 4? And the second part of this exercise is to gather inspiration. So since this is visual communication, everything has to be visual. So we have to pick 6 pictures, 6 or more, that you think represent your project. So I'm going to give you an example of Coca-Cola. So the thing that we associate Coca-Cola with is with the bottle, is with the shape of how it fits in our hands, of the action that we have to do to open it. All of this fits into the brand. So we have a few images here that sort of represent it, and we can base it out of that. So there is this website called unsplash.com, which gives you really high definition and really good quality pictures. So you can, of course, use Google Images, but I would suggest using Unsplash, because it's very aesthetic and it's very nice. So if, for example, if I write, a little harsh, but let's see what it gives us. It doesn't give you the usual globe melting and like an ice cream cone that you would find on Google Images. You know, it gives you a little bit more interesting and curated images. So maybe these can be used for your pitch deck if you intend on creating one for this project, or another one. So look at these images and pick 6 of them, and you can use the Word document. Actually, let me just open that for you. Right, so you have this Word document, right? So you can fill in, hopefully you filled all of these questions in, and the 6 words, for example, can be quirky, cold, abstract, huge, peaceful. They don't have to be related to each other. They just have to be related to your project. Up to 12 pictures to represent them. So you can use people, emotions, movie posters, and you can use other logos, but I would suggest using only 2 or 3 other logos at this point. So yeah, go for it. I will share with you. Yeah, the noun project is an interesting one as well. Oh, thank you. So I'm actually going to sh show you. I have to show you something. This is very important. I'm sorry, I forgot before. So if Coca-Cola was doing this, right? How do you make a refreshing image for Coca-Cola? This could be an example, of it's along the same lines of their voice or their brand, but it's kind of a new look. So your task in this entire project is to make something that is related to science, right? And in science there are so many patterns and textures and shapes that you can use, but it requires you to look at it from a distance. You see that then you'll find the shapes and the coherence and things like that. So when you're looking for these pictures, maybe you can think about that. Like if you're looking at for example, I think this is like a plant cell. So you can see the bubbles in that and take inspiration from that. So I suggest don't be afraid to get specific. If something looks attractive to you and you think there are patterns and shapes that represent your work, go for it, and put as many images as you can. And after that, we will sort them out and see which ones we can remove and which ones are more coherent. Is anyone finding this a little hard to do, or is it like super easy and fun?
I found some really nice images that I wasn't expecting to connect with my project before. So it's interesting to get inspiration from it. But yeah, really looking forward to what the next steps are.
Yeah.
Yeah, like is that there's some images are coming up that I thought like, oh, I wouldn't have thought of viewing it that way. Whereas then there's some others of the keywords that are like, I would have thought would have been easy to find an image that really got the idea behind it, but actually it's like none of them seem to quite fit, if that makes sense. I guess that's kind of like how words can have different interpretations.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Something
have
that
a
No, please.
I might be looking wrongly. I don't know. So I think this platform that you showed us is super interesting because I didn't know it before. And as you say, it's like you get different images than the standard thing that you get with Google.
Mm-hmm.
But I, like, from the way how I searched now, I did not feel that it was super fitting to science purposes, because I did not get a lot of images back where, say, I could really relate them to a science project. I don't know, maybe it's how I was looking and how I found it.
Yeah. So what you said is extremely interesting. So when you're making this project that you developed, right, you've gotten super involved into the science of it, and that's maybe what you see, you know. So I would suggest when you're looking for these images, they don't have to be related. Like, who thought of the ice cream cone melting? Even though it's not very pleasing to the eye, it sends the message: global warming. You know, so I would suggest going for it. If you want to go for something, for example, free. If free is your word, go for an eagle. It doesn't have to be science related. It doesn't have to be an electron or whatever around it. You know, it can be an eagle. Some of the best logos that I've seen are ironic. So I think go wild.
Yeah, it's super interesting. It's a nice approach. Thanks.
Are we allowed to use Unsplash? Stephen, yeah. I mean, do you mean for the hackathon?
I think Steve means, are we only allowed to use Unsplash right now during the, or can we use?
Absolutely not. You can use anything you like, as long as it's related to your project and high definition. So use a really good image, like a large image. So why we do this? This is a book. It's Changed by Design. If you're interested in the design thinking process of starting out your project, maybe you can refer to this book. It's very interesting. So have people found their images? If some or how many? Maybe you can give me some numbers and we can see how people are doing. Okay. 4. Can we see some of these? Is that okay? Like, if anyone wants to see, show me like the pictures that they've. It's cool. It's cool if you think it doesn't fit, or.
I'm happy to share my screen and show some of the ones I've got people want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, for example, our keywords were these, like fundamental, connection, motivation, passion. So the team is volunteer generator. These are our keywords. So I kind of went with the fundamental, connection, and motivation part of it. So I think the first one, this is kind of like the one that I'm happiest with, this idea of bringing people together, and it's on a tree, which I think has been felled. So it's like they have had to work together to get something done. Going from fundamental, I had to do a bit of word swapping, but I thought the idea of kind of like foundations of buildings, I didn't want it to be just a single person. I'm a bit annoyed that it's mostly pictures of blokes doing things, but construction is construction. But like this idea of people having to work together to achieve something bigger. Sadly, this is about the closest they got for actually having something resembling diversity. But this, like, I thought these gave a good idea of like what the project is trying to do. It's trying to get people together to build something bigger.
Is your project related to? Was it the one related to the? You gave an example of the science stand-up comedy.
Yes.
So it's the volunteer generator.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Okay. Cool. I see the connection and bringing connections. That's very cool. Okay.
I will stop the share. There we go.
Do you, Hugo, do you have a target audience in mind of who will be using your service or product or project?
Yes, we have kind of, there's kind of two ends of it. The primary user, I guess, would be event organizers and volunteer coordinators. But they then have a further audience, which would be obviously people that are looking to volunteer or get involved in outreach events.
Okay, that's cool. Why I asked you is because I was thinking about your science stand-up idea, as you mentioned casually, but I was like, if I went to a science stand-up like comedy place, I would just be blank. Like I would not understand the jokes, you know, because I'm a layperson. So I wanted to know if that was whether your intention was to spread the news of science or spread the news of the topic that you're talking about to scientists, or would it be to as many people as you possibly can?
I think that the science stand-up thing was supposed to be an example of an event, whereas the projects that we're working on volunteer, you have to imagine that the audience, the volunteer generator isn't intended to communicate a science idea. It's supposed to make it easier for people that want to communicate a science idea, but maybe don't have, either maybe they need assistance to do it, or they want people to help them with certain skills that maybe they don't have. And so we're trying to make it so that people that want to organize events can better get people to help them organize those events. You know, it's I think Samid or Sonia can probably attest to this. It's very rare you organize an event by yourself. Whereas if you're a scientist, you might not be skilled at, for example, yourself, like media design or things like that. And we want to make it so that people can know what type of things they might need, and also how they can communicate with the types of people that might have those skills that want to use them.
Okay.
Yeah.
So collaboration, almost like a collaborative platform. Okay,
yeah.
Great. So Samita's 5, Elizabeth 4, Hugo 4, Luca 7. Wow, that's really cool. Joseph has 6. Okay, cool. So I think we're ready to move on to our next one. All right. So now you have represented so far what your project is, right? What you have created. A big part of branding and creating this logo is to see where your project can go. So it is a little bit different from what you've created, because now there is the whole world involved. It's everyone else that you intend to bring in to your project. So how do we pique their interest, right? So let's start by getting a scheme. So you make a color palette. A color palette is a series of colors, as simple as that. And you will use this brand identity throughout your presentation. Okay. So I'll give you an example. Yeah, right. So I will send you these softwares that I have. So let's see. Sorry. So the idea of this is, I mean, it's funny coming from me, but it's how do we do it without a designer? Okay, so that's the intention of me giving you these softwares, because these are not the type of softwares where you put like your keywords and you click a button and it gives you this logo. Those are very unoriginal, and it's important to be original. So we have to make something unique. So this one is Coolers. I don't know how you pronounce it, but it's a website that basically allows you to select and make a color palette. So that is one. The other one is this other one is really interesting. It uses machine learning or like deep learning to make a color palette for you that is coherent. So I'm going to show you how it works really quickly. And these are all free. These are just softwares. So you can see my screen. Right? All right, so this is ColorMind. And this is a really cool software. So what it does is you can take an image. So I'm going to upload a random image. So you go to image upload over here. And let's say this one, okay? This is a cross section of a plant, okay, of a stem. So it's pretty random, and it gives you like basically a color palette for the whole image, right? And it's really quick. And what this does is it looks at it holistically. It takes out random pictures from it. So you can download this. I think there's some place that you can download this. Maybe if I just save as. So let's try again. So we're just gonna get a random image, right? So this one is rather colorful and random, and it gives you these images. So now what's the point? What's the point of these images, right? If you've seen Batman, and if you think about it, you know, or if you watch Star Wars and you think about it, it gives you a bit of nostalgia, and you immediately get like this picture in your mind of what the movie is about. So this is a frame. This is one frame, and in that frame you have like these colors, and the colors have a big part to do with it, because human beings remember things with our senses, and the biggest sense is to understand different colors. So that's the point of creating this. So this is ColorMind, but there's also Coolers. I don't know why they name it something like this, but I'm going to show you how it works very quickly. Okay. So you press generate, and for example, now if you press spacebar or in your keyboard, and it keeps generating random mood boards. So for example, if I like this one, I will hover my mouse on top of it and I'll lock it. And now all of these will start to change, and this one will remain locked. So now what you're looking for is something that goes with the other one, right? These four go with each other, but this one, it doesn't go with that much. So when you're looking at this and you're pressing the spacebar, keep thinking about antimatter, keep thinking about gravity, keep thinking about how do you make things collaborative. Maybe collaborative, you can use two different colors that have nothing to do with each other, because that could work as well. So anything you like. Again, this is a lot of fun to do, so just have fun doing it. So once you create this, you can export. You can export right here.
Maria, I have a quick question.
Yeah.
This is really cool, by the way. I'm just curious to know, for people who don't have a designer's eye, for people who are not designers, can we trust our instinct to tell us that these colors don't go together? Or, you know, how people have varying ideas of, some people prefer clashing and some don't. So how do you decide
Okay.
which colors go together in the first place?
Yeah, that's a really important question, which is why I found it a little hard to design this workshop, because in terms of branding or designing anything, there are two parts of it. There's aesthetic and beauty, and then there is the process involved in creating that project. Since you've already done that, we're talking about aesthetics and beauty. So even the keywords you pick, it requires creativity. So you should take stress to to pick those keywords as well. You know, it's the same value, and it's definitely a skill that you have to learn. That is to look at something and you think it's beautiful, or make it beautiful. It's definitely a skill. But these tools that we have in our age, it's almost allowing you to pick and choose. So when you're creating something, you have a million options, right? As a designer, you have like a million options, and then you get to choose whatever you want. But these kind of constrain you. In there are various factors, but it kind of gives you seven options, and so that helps you. It speeds up the process of creating it. But to answer your question about, can you trust yourself? You should, because these tools eventually will make something that looks professional. So the more professional it looks, it will probably go for someone. It will probably work for someone. It will probably like inspire someone. So it doesn't. Don't stress yourself over that. You know, don't stress yourself about that right now, because as much as I would say hire a design professional, there are some things that you can do by yourself as well, which is I personally believe that. So yeah, I hope that answers. Sumit, I think we started a little late. How much time do you think we have?
We can probably go about 5, maximum 10 minutes over, because I'm sure the teams have already meetings lined up after this to hack with the rest of the team. Yeah.
So maybe that would cut short making the logo and teaching you the software a little bit. But in my opinion, this is the most important part. It's this process of looking at it holistically that will help you throughout the day and maybe in the future as well, during this crunch period. So if everyone has created who has created a color palette so far? Okay. If people have created a color palette, I can move on to fonts. So this is another font pairing is also a very big part of branding. So I think maybe you know it. There's serif, sans serif, script. So maybe you're familiar with these types of fonts, and you usually pair two fonts together. So this is again a website that does it for you. This is called Font Joy. and it makes it look a little bit coherent, and it's a generator again. I hope I don't disturb people while you look for your information, but this is something I wanted to talk about. So in this font that you see, this is a serif. A serif is the one that has these little bridges at the end, and it's very classic. It gives you the feeling of something classic and old, and maybe that has a lot of experience. But this one is catamaran, which is a sans serif. It's more modern. So if you want to make something modern, which I'm sure you do in the science field of science, I think you should go for something that is sans serif most of the time. The go-to one is Helvetica, because it works. Okay, those are the ones that work. There's Montserrat, which is also very interesting. So you can just search for them. And it will give you, these are all great. All of them are pretty good, you know. But I would personally steer clear of the serif, because those are, unless it really fits your goal. Okay. So how do I feel about Comic Sans? I think the fact that you're asking, I steer clear away from that. Comic Sans, I'm sure everyone knows. Well, it could work. It could work on children's boxes for like gifts or something like that. It could work, but yeah, steer clear away from that font.
Yeah, Comic Sans was used by our current spokesperson when she announced the discovery of the Higgs boson.
Oh, wow. Yeah. By visual impairments and dyslexia, that's very interesting. So there are some fonts which are being created now that are for dyslexic people. So it makes it easier. It makes it more distinct, because dyslexia, they can't distinguish between a D or a B, right? So it makes it more distinct, and that way there are some fonts, but it's a very new thing. It's only this decade that people have been considered these things. Visual impairments, I'm not sure what else you mean.
Things like poor eyesight. I know that there's fonts, but there's also font colors. So, for example, for some colorblind people, some types of colorblindness, people would contrast in colors that don't contrast for them, for example. But I mean, even in terms of, I guess, people with learning disabilities that I guess have a bit like dyslexia, have issues with distinguishing different letters or things like that. So, for example, the Comic Sans is an interesting one because I think there's some research that says that Comic Sans is easier for certain people with dyslexia to understand than a lot of other fonts, for example.
Yeah, when we think about where this could be implemented, if you think about the subway system, those need to be like the graphics in a subway system need to be extremely neat and clean and understandable for the general public. So it would, I think, when you're making something like that, you need to consider a lot of these things. But if you're considering fonts for a logo, then you should, but it gives you there's a free pass. Like it you know, like it would be more you nowadays we're considering things like visual impairments for other general public urban use, and in that case we try and make it as well as easy as possible. I don't know how else to say it, as contrasting as possible. I took the subway in Russia recently, and it was the simplest thing to understand because they had very, very big exit with just an arrow going straight, things like that. But to be honest, it's a field by itself. Social design is a whole field by itself. You have these walkways, right, for people to walk, and for the visually impaired. So that's the whole thing by itself, I think. Right. So I think we can go on. No, I think the next. So if people have found a color palette and a font, one font or two fonts, we can move on to writing a slogan. So this is the part that I was saying. Maybe you've thought about it, and I think Hugo mentioned something while he was talking to me. He said collaborative, connecting, all these keywords, right? They'll be really useful now. So try and make a slogan. Imagine that you have to explain to someone really quickly in 30 seconds. How would you do that? Hi, Elizabeth. Do you mean dark themes on a phone?
I generally mean when you display text, independent if it's like on a logo, which you see somewhere, or if it's like a panel in a museum or whatever. Or yeah, I have the feeling it's like very often people go for dark themes, like have a dark background and have a light writing in front of it instead of the other way around, because they always say it's like better, easier to read, better for the eyes and so on. It's quite funny because I have exactly the opposite experience. It's very tiring for me. And I was wondering if there's something like with, because for me, when I have something light on a dark background, the things kind of explode.
Okay, right.
And I was wondering if you have, if there's, something depending on the font, how you can choose it and to make it like as readable as possible for people who rather read on a dark theme, like on a dark background or on a light background, and to make it applicable kind of for all people or all preferences.
Right. Okay. So I'm just gonna ask you if this is what you mean. Okay. So this is a dark text on a light background, right? So do you mean
Yes.
Do you mean something like this, or rather?
Exactly. So the dark letters on the light background is for me much easier than the other way around, But
Okay.
I see many things now often designed the other way around.
Okay. So you mean something like where you can't really see what was it, like this?
Yes.
Right?
Yes. And I don't know why this trend goes in this direction, but people generally say it's easier and better for them, so I believe them. But
well, I think it depends where you've seen this or who's been using this. But I think it just comes down to a different style. These are not necessarily, you can, for example, you can highlight a text by, sorry, that's just, you can highlight a text by making it bolder, right? Like this. So for example, in this screen, the first thing that you will read is explore, because it has a color on it. Then you read what goes next. So then it comes down to hierarchy, right? So it, which is something I wanted to cover as well for your pitch deck, etc. If you have an art board like this, you have to basically trace where the person will see first and make that a priority. So when I'm looking at this, I'm definitely looking at the black thing as my eye is caught with this, right? But it can also be done unintrusively with a bolder text. Okay, so this is graphic and this is semi-bold, right? If I use regular, it still works because it's different from this one. Okay, so it's creating contrast, hierarchy, and color. Okay, so if you want to create something that and curate how people look at it, I would suggest using colors sparingly, and I would play with the size of things and the font type. So not necessarily making something as the background. It works, but it's, as you said, intrusive and not pleasant. So I would definitely suggest using these things instead. This is where font pairing also becomes interesting. So if I choose a different, yeah, Comic Sans over here. No, but if we use one of my favorite ones is, right, it's thin, but I can read it. I can still read it because this one is bold. You know, if I made this, I can't. It doesn't interest me anymore. You see? Now it's all right. Now I can read this and then I'll read that. So it's just playing around with contrast and hierarchy that I would suggest. But does that answer your question?
yes, kind of does. Thanks a lot.
Can I add something? What Elizabeth said make completely sense. There is the Gestalt laws of perception, and it's a general rule that if you have a white background with a black letter, it's easier to read that the other way around, of how the color expand between each other and how the colors combine. With the white, the border of the letter, when you see it, tend to be like open and extended in the dark color. So that's because it's difficult or more tiring for you to read. And the other way around, the border is well defined of the letter, so it's more focused and it's easier to follow. But if you give a look to the Gestalt laws, I can send the name. It's one of the principal laws, and it has been widely studied, and it's something behind. And it's a general rule, not only for you. But using a black color is a trend in graphic design. It's not because it's better. For all the inclusive design, also they recommend to use a clear background with a dark color for the letter.
Cool, thanks a lot.
Okay, so I think we can, has everyone, what do you have right now in your brand book? Have you created a color? Do you have a few colors? Do you have a keyword and a slogan? If you want, you can send your slogans as well. I think that would be interesting to see. Okay, so you can send that on the chat. Now I'm going to quickly move on to how you can create, how do you design this logo, right? So the problem with logo design is that right now it is dominated by Adobe Illustrator, which is a software that we use for logo design and vector softwares. It requires a paid membership. So if you have it, that's fantastic. Please use that. It also requires you some time to get accustomed to. So what we'll be using is vector without the o.com, right? It's an online website that allows you to make vectors pretty quickly. So now I'm just going to tell you really quickly what the file types are. Okay, so for example, if you need to advertise your project on a billboard, you would use a vector, and it's the same explanation that I would give that you have in physics, right? It describes a movement from one point to another, so it can be scaled mathematically, and it doesn't lose any resolution. But in terms of the bitmap and pixels, it's made out of pixels and it loses your resolution. So that's the difference between vector and using an image. So let's go here. Right, let's just, yeah. So if you could quickly go to this website, it will help you, and it's extremely easy. I use Illustrator usually, and I learned this in a few hours. That's how easy it is. So I'm pretty sure you can pick this up very nicely. Okay, so once we check that out, I'm just going to show you the process of how you would make this. All right, so you come with this, you press new file. Press new file. Okay, so you're going to get basically this plain box, and that's your artboard. All right, and it's very simple. And this is basically like your piece of your pen and paper. And these are your tools. So you have your rectangle, ellipse. This is your pen tool. So you press a point, and if you press and hold, you can make it curvy, etc. Okay, so let's just close this random shape. You can use a text. So you press this text tool. It's very similar like to maybe PowerPoint or something like that you've used. You have your text tool, you have a pen tool, you have your rectangle, etc. Right. Minimal, okay? Once you press on text tool, that's right. So you press this, and you have a few you have a few fonts to choose from. So let's just choose a good serif, sans serif font. So this is a serif font. Use a good sans serif font. So I would if you want to make logos by yourself, I would suggest getting Illustrator, although this is only for quick uses. So it doesn't have all the fonts that you've learned or that's on FontJoy, for example. So let's just use a random one for now. So here is where you can select your color. Okay, so you have, for example, in this shape as well, this has a color, or it can have a gradient. So let's choose a linear gradient. A linear gradient is something like this. This is where you can flip your image as well. So, for example, if I have, oops. Right, so if my words are bright, strong, fun, free, and flight, and I created something like a bird. It's very simple, but it represents all these things, right? So this is a gradient that that I made using this tool. So something that you can do is on your left there's upload image. So you can go here and upload any image you want. This is the theme, I guess, plants. So once you drop this image into your software, press Shift and make it smaller. Okay, so it does it together. Oops, I'm sorry, that was my mistake. So what this does is you can take inspiration from one of the images that you have picked. So for example, if I picked this image and I thought it represented my project, I can click on it and lower its opacity. So I'm going to go 44, 50, let's say 50%, right? And I'm going to lock this in place. So right click, unlock, right click, lock. All right. So what I'm going to do is I want this shape. I want this circle, and I want these little bubbles as well. So how do I do that? You get your ellipse, shift, and drag. It's as simple as that. Okay. So this is for creating. You can basically trace any object that you want that way. So you want something like this. You can click on both of these, and on top you can unite or subtract or intersect or exclude. Okay, so it's very easy to sort of get any shape that you want. So if you have used the keyword connect, if you go, I'm going with yours. I would see connection. I would see what people have been making now. See if something inspires you with that, because it's symbolism, and it's a little tough to do this by yourself. So that's why you use inspiration boards and mood boards that you created. So if in your mood board you have a couple of logos, you can look at that and say, okay, that's for example, this is humans connecting in a way, right? So this could be you can make this your own, by taking inspiration from this. So for example, if I took the freedom and flight one, so I would go for a powerful eagle, for example. Okay. Right. So this is interesting enough. So what you can do is drag this directly into your software and just drop it in. Press Shift, make it smaller. Reduce the opacity so that you can draw on top of it and lock the object. Go to your pen tool, and you'll have to zoom in for this, and you have to spend some time doing this. is you basically want to see which part you want to trace. So I want this wing, because I think the wing is interesting. So I will start over here and drag. All right, so that's how you would create this. So at the end of it, you would have a kind of a shape that you can go for. So I'm going to do this really fast here. I think we're running out of time. So you take one of your images and try and create the shape that you would like. Okay. So I'm just going to close this. So this is the pen tool, right? So if I were to, sorry. So if I were to unlock my objects, I don't need the eagle anymore. So I just get rid of it. And now I have a random shape that's similar to the one that we have. And you can go to the color, press gradient, or you can just put a block color if you want. You can put any color that you want. I like gradients. I like gradients. So you click on this box, and so gradient is basically a spectrum of two colors or three, or however many you want. So you press this, and you can adjust. So I'm going to make it something like this, or I can pick. So go here, eyedropper, and you pick this. Go here, and pick this. You see? So these are a few examples of what you can create, and it's very easy. So if these are basic shapes, but you can make this your own. You can fiddle around with this website and see what works, because that's honestly the best way to learn a new website. A new software. So if you have, you can try putting inlet shadows. You can try different things. You can try making it 3D as you wish. I would strongly suggest playing around, seeing what works. There are some tools you can use. There are, wait, hold on. I think I've shown you the different types of logos. I'll just wrap it up after showing you the types of logos. Yeah, so there are 7 types. There are 7 types of logos. There are many types, but the most common types are these. Right, perfect. So you have an abstract one. You have a person that represents it. You have an emblem, like the Harvard, like an emblem, a symbol, which is what Elizabeth said, which can be ironic or just distinct. You know, you have a combination of a text and a symbol, letter mark, and a word mark. Okay, so why if you think that if you think it's important to make a logo for the future, for a future project that you have, I would really suggest trying to make this yourself and seeing how it goes, because when you follow this process, it gives you a better understanding of your project to begin with. So I would suggest doing this as almost like an exercise, and the whole making a logo, do it as an exercise at the end of your at the end of every project that you make. Yeah, I would suggest doing that. And if you've already created something, or if you have logos already, you can maybe show me, and it would be really cool. Affinity is really nice.
Well, yeah, this was really, really cool. I'm just curious to know, will you be available over the weekend on Mattermost in the Ask a Mentor channel, so that if people have questions?
Yeah, I'm available.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
No, thank you so much. It was really fun.